The British royal family exists in a paradox of visibility and profound seclusion. Every smile is scrutinized, every gesture decoded, and every silence imbued with meaning. For decades, the institution has been shielded by a formidable, if increasingly porous, barrier, a blend of tradition, deference, and a carefully managed narrative of stoic continuity. Yet, there are days when that barrier cracks and the raw humanity within is laid bare. Not in a staged photograph or a prepared speech, but in a fleeting, unguarded moment. Such was the emotional day when Prince William, the future king, confronted a reality the House of Windsor had privately dreaded for generations. This was not about a scandal or a geopolitical crisis, but something far more foundational: the poignant, public intersection of personal grief with the immutable demands of duty, a moment where the man and the monarch in waiting could no longer be separated. To understand the gravity of this moment, one must first grasp the architectural psyche of the modern monarchy, particularly as shaped in the post-Diana era. The late 20th century witnessed the family's fortress of silence stormed by media cyclones, most tragically around the death of William's mother. The lesson learned, and perhaps overlearned, was that emotional display was a vulnerability that could destabilize the mystique of the crown. Never complain, never explain was not just a motto, it was a survival mechanism. The model of royal emotionality became one of quiet dignity, of grief endured privately behind castle walls, of duty as an anesthetic for personal pain. Prince Philip embodied this with his gruff, unwavering support. Queen Elizabeth II with her legendary, almost superhuman fortitude. The fear was not of emotion itself, but of its public, unmanaged expression, the fear that the dam might break, and with it, the carefully maintained illusion of regal imperturbability. Prince William's entire life has been a preparation for sovereignty, but also a conscious deconstruction of this very model. Alongside Catherine, Princess of Wales, he has pioneered a style of monarchy that allows for measured vulnerability, speaking of mental health, hugging bereaved children, sharing personal anecdotes about parenting. He has worked to retain a core of relatable humanity within the gilded cage of his destiny. Yet this project exists in constant tension with the crushing weight of his ultimate role. He is the son who lost his mother in the most public way imaginable, the husband seeking to protect his own family from similar specters, the brother navigating a fractured relationship played out on the world stage, and the future king upon whose shoulders the very relevance of the institution may rest. These identities are not layers he can shed. They are a fused and heavy crown he already wears. The catalyst for the moment could vary: the unveiling of a permanent memorial to his father, King Charles III, forcing a confrontation with filial complexity and succession; a public event related to his mother's legacy on a significant anniversary, where the ghost of unresolved media trauma looms large; or, perhaps most acutely, a situation involving his children where his dual role as protector, father, and public figure collides with unbearable force. Imagine a major public engagement, a walkabout, or a service of remembrance, occurring on a day of deep personal significance or amid a private family crisis known only to a few. The schedule, set years in advance, does not bend for a prince's heart. We see him then, on that day. He's impeccably dressed, every inch the future king. He performs the rituals, the slow walk, the receiving of flowers, the practiced half-smile, the murmured thanks. The machine of monarchy hums along. But then something shifts. It might be the sight of a child of a certain age, the strain of a particular song, the earnest words of a well-wisher that bypass the official persona and strike the core of the private man. His eyes, usually so composed and blue, glisten under the lights. He pauses, his jaw tightens, and for a second, a long, suspended second, he looks not at the crowd, but through them, to some internal horizon of memory or pain. He swallows hard, a visible effort to reclaim control. The smile returns, but it is different now, touched with a fragility that was not there before. He continues, but the performance is over. What we are witnessing is no longer a royal duty being discharged, but a human being consciously choosing to shoulder that duty while carrying a visible, almost tangible weight. This is the moment the family feared. It is not a failure of protocol, but a transcendence of it. In that crack in the facade, several profound fears are realized simultaneously. First, the fear of exposed fragility. The monarchy's power rests partly on its symbolism of permanence and stability. A visibly emotional air challenges that, reminding millions that the figurehead is flesh and blood, susceptible to the same fractures as anyone else. Second, the fear of inherited trauma. William's emotion is inevitably read through the prism of his mother's story, dragging the institution's past failures and protecting its own back into the present spotlight. It raises uncomfortable questions. Has nothing changed? Is this system, for all its modernization, still inherently destructive to those born into it? Third, and perhaps most critically, is the fear of the sovereign's self. The constitutional monarch must be a neutral, dispassionate anchor. By showing his heart so openly, does William risk being seen as too human, too specific, too political in the broadest sense? The fear is that empathy could be misconstrued as partiality. Yet, in our 21st century world, which demands authenticity above aloofness, this moment of humanity may also be the institution's greatest source of renewed strength. The public does not see a weak man. They see a strong man bearing a weight they can, for the first time, truly perceive. They see a father, a son, a leader who does not hide his humanity, but carries it with him into his service. This transforms duty from a cold, archaic obligation into a conscious, costly, and deeply respected sacrifice. The aftermath of such a moment is a delicate dance. The traditional machinery would seek to minimize it. A palace source might call it a moment of reflection or blame it on the dusty air. But the modern, and William's own, approach would be different. It would likely involve a subtle, later acknowledgement. Perhaps in a speech on mental health, he might reference the cumulative weight of personal and public life. Maybe Catherine, in a solo engagement, would offer a supportive comment about the challenges of balancing family with their unique form of public service. The acknowledgement would not be explicit about the specific moment, but would validate the humanity it revealed. The media narrative would split, of course. Some quarters would frame it as William's poignant moment of humanity, forging a deeper connection with the public. Others might question his steeliness or fitness for the ultimate role, clinging to the outdated model of the impenetrable royal. Ultimately, this emotional day represents a pivotal point in the evolution of the British monarchy. Prince William stands at the vanguard of this change, a man caught between the stoic model of his grandmother's reign and the empathetic demands of the new century. The moment the family feared is, in truth, the moment it perhaps needed. It signals the end of the myth of the invulnerable sovereign and the birth of a new ideal, the resilient sovereign. Resilience is not the absence of feeling, but the courage to feel and still proceed. It is strength forged in vulnerability. For Prince William, this day is not a breakdown, but a breakthrough. It is the point where his cultivated modern approach to royalty is stress-tested by the deepest currents of his own life and found to be authentic. The burden does not disappear. If anything, its contours become clearer to all. But in allowing the world a glimpse of the weight, he transforms it from a hidden shackle into a shared and therefore more bearable cross. The fear for the royal family was always that emotion would undermine majesty. What William's emotional day suggests is that in the world we now inhabit, true majesty may have the courage to contain both. The silent, stoic fortress may be giving way to something more resilient, a monarchy with a visible heart, still beating, still serving, and finally unafraid to be seen doing so. The path to the throne is no longer just a gilded procession, it is a pilgrimage of the human spirit, and William, in his most vulnerable moment, may have just proven himself the most credible guide for the journey ahead. The crown's future rests not on his cold weight of history, but on the warm strength of the man destined to wear it.